Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
Fuego here.
And we are here to fulfill a Patreon request for a review. This review was requested by the Brat Queen, and there's no "the" in front of it, but just Brat Queen.
What up, Brat Queen?
She's been a subscriber and patron of ours for a few months at this point.
You are appreciated.
And honestly, I think her first request was magic, and when she first requested it, I'll be honest, Fuego and I attempted to do a commentary, but we had technical difficulties, screwing up a good portion of it, and honestly we attempted to do it after a long day of shooting, so I don't think it was sitting well with both of us.
We'd gone for like 6 hours and we got about 20, maybe 30 minutes into it, and nothing had really happened except for the plot development, laying all the pieces in their places and stuff.
And so we were both really tired at the time.
Wrong film, wrong time, too late in the night, but I'm glad that there are so many anniversaries going on for this film. Unfortunately, one being the passing of William Goldman, the guy who wrote the screenplay, adapting his own novel. But he did so much other stuff, from Marathon Man to adapting Misery for Stephen King for screen, and doing the theatrical version, the theater version of Misery as well. So, I mean, his list of credits is insanely long, but he just passed away the week of this filming on November 16th. King tweeted about it, and he was a very prolific writer, and this story wowed me upon finally giving it the proper analysis and consideration.
Which this story, we should mention, is magic.
Yes, yeah, we need to get around to actually mentioning what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. We are going to be talking about Magic, starring Anthony Hopkins, a very, very young Anthony Hopkins.
A lot of hair.
1978. And
so it was the 40th anniversary this month of this film too. So we figured, let's give it another go. During that, because there was other outlets covering it too, and we're like, yeah, we need to go back and actually give that its proper attention.
For sure. And so we both rewatched it separately in order to make sure we gave it proper due. And I am so glad that I sat down to give it another go, because I really, really liked this movie.
It's very interesting character analysis, and
it seems like one of those ones that every horror fan should see. Especially every horror fan that has ever watched anything regarding dummies.
Yeah.
Because that's what this movie is.
If you've seen Your Dead Silences, if you've read Night of the Living Dummy, Goosebumps, whatever.
Yeah, Goosebumps, exactly.
But this is a different slapping. Yeah, but
this is
a different take on it, though. This is much more, like I said, like personal psychological analysis thriller of sorts. And I have to give a shout out to the love interest in this, Anne Margaret, who I think, despite her age, is kind of a babe in this movie. I don't know what it is for me about that. And then we also have, if you remember the name of the actor, he was Mickey in
Burgess
Rocky.
Meredith.
Yeah,
Burgess Meredith.
He is
played
great.
Played Anthony Hopkins' agent. Okay, remind me, what was Anthony Hopkins' character name versus the dummy's character name? Geez. Fats was the dummy.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I mean, I can look.
Go ahead and look it up.
I can look. We were doing our notes right beforehand.
So overall, we both really enjoyed the movie. Corky, okay.
Yeah.
Of course.
Come on, Cork. Come on, Cork.
Yeah,
Corky, come on.
But this movie is about Corky, the comedian who is struggling to find success in the New York comedy scene. Comedian magician, right?
Yeah.
And he has sort of issues, but he happens across this idea. Take a half step to your right, would you? I think you're leaning off screen.
I was trying not to block the
that's
logo
okay.
behind
That's
us.
okay. It's whatever. It's not perfectly centered.
I know.
It's aesthetically pleasing, not perfectly centered.
Sorry.
So Corky is a struggling comedian magician, and he brings into his act Fats the dummy, who is essentially his way of getting his demons out, kind of,
It's him unfiltered, because he's a very reserved and just kind of unconfident individual in a lot of ways. I mean, which seeps into the whole love interest thing, and the fact that she's like, I know you had a crush on me and you just never went for it at all, sort of thing. So, it's his MO.
so he's actually attaining some success with Fats the dummy, and he decides to take a break because he's having some serious issues.
It's quite the contrast with the first time we see him on stage compared to the second time, because the first time there's barely anybody in there, nobody's paying attention, his act falls flat, and he's talking presumably with his father about how he did, and the difference between that
entirely,
and his dad knows, he's like, don't feed me crap, kid, that sort of thing. But when we see him the second time, and the executives and the agents and stuff are there, and the house is packed, and he's got the dummy, I mean, I love the way they describe magic in this, about how it's all about diverting the attention and stuff. And he talks about how it's tougher to do that on television. Misdirection. It's tougher to do that on television in comparison with a live setting, you know, and his career takes off from there, and we almost flash forward a little bit, right? Yeah.
To where he's struggling a bit, and he's struggling a bit mentally and the fame,
He's been on Carson, he's, you know, made the rounds, people know who he is at this point, and, you know, he goes to a remote area because he needs to get away.
And he takes a bit of a break and goes back to his hometown, where he doesn't expect to, but encounters his high school love interest. And, you know, he basically even says to her at one point, I was just coming to ask your parents how you were doing, and it turns out you're here running their bed and breakfast kind of place, right, exactly. And so, sort of
neither of them at first think they remember each other, though. He doesn't think she remembers him.
It's a bit of a meet cute, her. You know, a delayed meet cute.
Yeah, it was kind of the late 70s rom-com-ish, you know, Annie Hall-ish vibe of times, but, you know.
But it turns out she's married. But
estranged.
They very much like each other and a bit estranged. Well, not really estranged, it's just he travels a lot. And so that actually produces some of the most interesting stuff. Like, I was a bit, the beginning is a bit slower. But once you get into everything about 30, 45 minutes in, and it becomes Corky and Fats, or Corky trying to manage Fats while trying to have a relationship blossom, an illicit relationship, essentially.
Yeah, they both know the score as they're going into it, but, you know, feelings are feelings, and they're still in the midst of it, and, I mean, what else are you going to do? So, yeah, I mean, I liked the dynamic between Anne Margaret and Anthony Hopkins. I thought it was cute and endearing and stuff, and yet there was still, like, kind of a snide skepticism about it, but yet they can't deny, you know, how they feel, and yet the wrench, the weird little you know, joker in the deck, as you will, is his dummy, and the fact that initially it's endearing, but yet you start to really kind of figure out that, especially when the agent finally shows up, that's when you realize, you're like, oh, he's a little more nutsoid than you really think. And
well, there's a great scene, and we won't spoil what happens or anything, but basically the agents, he notices, Burgess Meredith, Mickey from Rocky, notices that something is very wrong here, and he's like, here's the thing, kid, if you can go 5 minutes without making Fats talk, then I think you're okay.
Yeah,
you know?
Because he walks in on him having a conversation with the dummy, and he's like, no, it's my new act.
And he's like, I'm rehearsing.
He just looks at him like, nah, you're full of crap, kid.
And it provides a fantastically tense scene where Anthony Hopkins sets Fats down, and he can't...
He's antsy as hell.
He's
you got another cigar?
He's like, how long now? How long now? But it's such a great scene, and then it results in... You know, that's where the movie essentially starts spinning into horror directions.
Exactly.
And it's Corky trying to cover up for Fats's advice, one might say.
To a degree. And they keep it vague enough and ambiguous enough, which I think is really interesting, about whether it is him and he's just mentally nuts, or whether this doll is in fact alive. They keep that gray area going, pretty much not spoiling anything through the entire movie in a lot of ways, and you're left to really just make up your own mind, which I think is pretty cool, you know.
So let's segue. I mean, that's the movie in and of itself.
Overall impressions, I loved it.
Anything,
I thought it was great. It was terrific. I'm glad that, you know, we were sent down this trail.
Yeah, and the story, you know, was great. It was fantastic to watch unfold in a classic horror sense.
It makes me curious to even read the novel at this point that William Goldman wrote, having based it on a novel of his own writing as well.
It would be interesting. What did you think of the acting in this?
Tremendous, yeah. As I said, I liked the tortured, almost like suffering and silenceness of the Anthony Hopkins character, and even more so, I found it fascinating when he finally, you know, attains the fame that he aspired to, and the fact that he's jaded by it, and he's just kind of tripped out, and it feels weird to him. Just his interaction with that cabbie, in particular, when he was getting dropped off, and, you know, the guy's like, yeah, I've seen you on the TVs and stuff like that, and I don't know, he still seemed socially awkward even then, and he was even a little awkward with the Anne Margaret character, who I found very cute and endearing in that late 70s babe sort of way. I don't know. Obviously, you know, the guy who played Mickey, terrific. You know, their dynamic was great. So yeah, acting is top notch in this, and the weird puppetry and stuff. And I'm assuming that was that was
it was all ADR.
Yeah. But it was Hopkins doing the voice.
Absolutely, yeah.
It
was Hopkins doing the voice of Fats that they ADR'd, so he never had to act like he was a ventriloquist.
But the inflection and just the way he threw his voice and made himself sound so drastically different was on point and showed that. I mean, he had a dueling performance going on in this, in all honesty, and he was great in both. Terrific, in fact.
Back and forth is amazing. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to watch. The acting is incredible in this, between Burgess Meredith as the concerned agent and
especially when the concern comes into play. You know,
Anne Margaret's husband was really good too when he finally came into play as well, because there is he returns in the midst of this blossoming romance, and they have to deal with the drama of that.
And of course, he suspects
provides some
what's
super
going
tense
on,
scenes.
But yeah, and yet he's a drinker and stuff, and so she's like, "Oh, I hate when you drink," and he starts getting more forceful with his I don't know, interrogation of her and what's really going on. And then there's a really interestingly tense scene where him and Hopkins' character Corky go out on
fishing.
this rowboat, and he's basically and he just like lays it on him. What he has been told is going on, but
it's really cool. We don't want to ruin too much, but the acting is phenomenal all around. And Hopkins really surprised me how much I enjoyed him. When he gets nuts over performing a card trick in a cabin, like he's trying to do like a Houdini thing with Anne Margaret, the way Houdini and his wife did, where they each pull a card and he predicts what her card is, and he gets so intense. And I don't remember. I mean, I know Hopkins has a lot of intense performances, but this was particularly unnerving to me as a person that's seen Hopkins so many times and has seen Silence of the Lambs. This was an unnerving moment.
That was a more like Silence was more of like a brooding kind of whatever, but this was like legit unhinged with him in that particular segment. Man.
Cool to see. Cool to see.
And you felt
like
I
would have gone my whole life. It's 2018. It's been 40 years since this movie came out. I would have gone my whole life without seeing Hopkins get nuts over the top like that. That's a new benchmark for me when thinking of Hopkins' performances. It's really cool.
I'm with
I
you
love
there.
it.
It was very nuanced.
Thank Brat Queen for that, because geez, I would never have looked at this otherwise.
Yeah, if not for the fact that I saw it popping up in other feeds and stuff, for its anniversary this past week, and just being reminded, or about 10 days ago at this point, but yeah, nonetheless, man, great performance from him, and especially at his age. I mean, damn, yeah, he just continued to uphold that benchmark, man.
Now, as far as effects go, there's not much by way of effects. There's not much by way of gore or anything like that. There's the dummy. Yeah, the dummy design and everything
was cool.
is really cool and unnerving. And it more comes to sound design than visual effects of any kind, because it's 1978 and there's not really many, like, there's not a lot of gore to be had, but there is one instance of gore that was like there's an insane back and forth where basically Anthony Hopkins asks, "What do I use?" And Fats is like, me, and I was like, that was disturbing as crap.
That actually really was. That was
woo!
You messed up my face.
Yeah, God, that was so good though.
Yeah.
So good.
Because they talk about how heavy and weighted he is at various points in the film. Like Anne Margaret's character picks him up, and she's like, "Wow, he's heavy."
Yeah,
So
it's like if we used Baby Abigail over there for malintent purposes.
We still can. There's still a chance.
So I don't know. Is there anything else? I
thought the score was great too. Jerry Goldsmith did a terrific job. It starts out initially when they're like going through the different clubs. You hear like the disco type stuff going on, and I'm like, I don't know how well this fits the scene. But then later on, they have this like callback that they keep coming back to over and over anytime he's really wrestling with himself mentally. And I mean, this guy's done so much stuff, Goldsmith. I mean, it's ridiculous, and it's unnerving, and it's kind of creepy. I'm trying to remember if it's like kind of a harmonica accordion-y type thing that they keep calling back to, but that's at least the way it sounded to me. And there was any moment he was just on the verge of sorts.
Yeah, there was always those accentuations to the score, and like the. It's funny, Tremors actually used a similar thing at times in their score, like the almost like an accordion sort of thing, like you were saying.
That was what it reminded me of.
No, it did have that feel to it at times.
Yeah, so I'd say top to bottom, from the technical aspect of it to the writing and the acting, This film was very impressive to me, really
Absolutely.
was, and it deserves more people like us who are the uninitiated to actually track it down and see it.
Absolutely. Make sure you guys do track down Magic. We watched it on...
It's on Shudder.
Shudder. Yeah, free on Shudder right now, guys.
Yeah.
If you have a Shudder subscription, make sure you get your hands on this one, because it is worthwhile. And again,
Shudder
this
is $5 a month.
Flirting with my baseline for the like 1973 and before, or 1972 and before. I'm out. So this one passed by 5 years. My 1973 Exorcist baseline. I don't watch movies much older than that for the most part. And this one was a really, really good 70s movie.
Agreed.
And actually, this is a good teaser for another review that I'm going to do. I'm going to force Fuego to do, because there's another 70s movie that I watched because of Patreon called Alice, Sweet Alice. It was a quintessential 70s movie that I had never seen, and man, is it something to talk about. So
yeah,
I'm excited to talk about that.
That'll be the next one for us next week, so I'm excited, man.
So thank you very much to the Brat Queen for suggesting Magic. We greatly appreciate it.
You have great taste, Brat Queen.
Absolutely. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel that way. If you are not a patron yet and you are interested to send some movies our way, look at this. This movie's been out for 40 years. Neither of us had ever seen it. So
being rediscovered,
we love that kind of stuff. So the link is in the description box down below if you happen to not be a patron yet. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias. I've been Jaim Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.